Hello historians, and welcome back to another edition of History with Miss V. And today we are looking at radical revolution and reaction. So basically this is the reaction to the French Revolution, how things changed after the revolution took place. Okay, and all of these, the government changed, how it became so radicalized, and what was the reaction to that, what was the effect of all of that, right? So let's continue. So basically these are your two standards and also your levels. If you're able to summarize the important causes and events and effects of the French Revolution, that's awesome. Also trying to be able to analyze how the Enlightenment impacted those two revolutions would be even better, right? So again, I'm trying to get you as high as possible here. I would love to get you to a level 3 to be able to summarize these important events of the French Revolution and its effects, right? And this is your vocabulary electors, right? So you'll see that again. If you did the vocabulary activity, you should have already known this vocabulary word already. All right, so this is number 1. On September 21st, the monarchy was abolished by the National Convention, and the National Convention established a republic in France. And a republic is a government that is ruled by the people. Okay, so again, that group that was part of the new National Assembly, and the National Assembly, the Paris Commune, remember those were the sans-culottes, and the sans-culottes, they wanted to have a national convention so that they can establish a new republic. So that National Convention now drafted a new constitution and also became the new ruling body of France. But also they abolished the monarchy and set up a republic. Okay, so that's your answer for number 1. Alright, so this is your answer for number 2, which is interesting because that was a little while ago. But January 21st, 1793, King Louis was beheaded by the guillotine. As you see here, this is a picture of the guillotine. I'm sure you've seen that in many cartoons and so forth. That is the guillotine, and it was a swifter way of execution. However, the king's execution did create a lot of enemies within the revolution and for the revolution within France, and also outside of France as well, because remember, France was also in war with Austria because of not wanting to have the revolution spread to their kingdoms. So again, that's going to create some more problems for France. Okay, so my ink is missing here, but I'm going to use my pen, and hopefully you get the idea here. But this portion here, this is your number 3, right? There we go. So that's the answer for number 3. The committee adopted policies, and these policies became known as the Reign of Terror. Okay, so who is the committee? The committee, and that's why I have this portion highlighted. The committee is actually a special group that the National Convention gave powers to. That was 12 people, and they became known as the Committee of Public Safety. And their job was to keep the peace, or trying to keep civility in France while all of this is happening, because remember, things are getting very violent and chaotic. So the National Convention figured that they needed to keep the peace and bring back some form of civility to France. In this case, their civility. So one of the things the committee set up was revolutionary courts to prosecute counter-revolutionaries, and traitors. Those people that were against the revolution itself. However, the prosecution was quite violent because a lot of them were executed. So it's almost as if, not almost, but a lot was where people that were of the revolution were being killed by the actual Committee for Public Safety. Yes, very confusing, but that was the case. Okay, and that's 3 and 4. So they prosecuted counter-revolutionaries, and sorry for that, but this is using my mouse. Counter-revolutionaries and traitors. All right, Pierre became the dominant leader per se with the Committee of Public Safety, and he was supported by this group that was a radical group in France called the Jacobins. And what his primary goal was to create France with a democratic republic of what he saw as good citizens, okay, and what he considered a good French citizen to be. And if they didn't fit that perspective of a good French citizen in his eyes, then he thought that using the motives of the Reign of Terror was necessary in order to get them, or to rid the people that are not of good citizens. So hopefully you understand the kind of thing that was happening here with Robespierre. He was, very extreme in terms of laying a heavy-handed justice quote unquote in this case, to those that he didn't see as good French citizens, right? Or trying to put forth a democratic republic for France, right? So if anyone went against that, it was off with their head, right? So that was Maximilien Robespierre, and that's 5, 6, and 7. Alright, and this is number 8. I know it's a lot, but this is what the Committee of Public Safety and the National Convention instituted. Okay, they enacted a primary education for all. Slavery was announced that it was abolished in the French colonies. I'm going to repeat that again. The Committee of Public Safety and within the National Convention, they mentioned that slavery was abolished in the French colonies. Now, this is going to make its way to Haiti. The enslaved Africans in Haiti are going to hear this and say, based on the Committee of Public Safety and the National Convention, we are free people. Something is going to happen later where that's not going to occur, and thus that issue is going to lead to the Haitian Revolution. Alright? So we'll talk more about that later though. Also, they wanted to control the prices of food and fuel and clothing to make sure that they combat against inflation, because remember, the prices of things increase, like things for them to make bread for their to feed their children, right? Also, they pursued a policy of de-Christianization, meaning that they allowed more secular outlooks and more secularized education and beliefs, right? Also, a new calendar was adopted. So again, here they created a new calendar. Of course, pretty much the Western world operates on a Gregorian calendar: January, February, March, April, 30 days and so forth. Here they adopted a new calendar that was different. I believe it was about 20 days, but I'll check and make sure. But that was their new calendar system that they adopted, and they wanted to change, and they did change a lot of the names of the months as well. Okay, but that was some of the changes that they wanted to institute. Now, that new calendar system did not hold up, especially today. Modern times, everyone pretty much in this main European and Western world operate on the Gregorian calendar. Okay. All right, so this is 9 and 10. As you see here, Robespierre was obsessed with ridding France of all of its corrupt elements. And then there was many that was in the National Convention that feared him, right? So that's part of your 9. So here you have the National Convention that's supposed to be like the legislative or the legislative body that makes the laws and so forth, right? And then you have the Committee of Public Safety, which Robespierre is running, and it's almost like the Robespierre is trying to usurp or use more power than he has, and now the National Convention is like, you're doing a little bit too much, right? So especially when it came to really, his idea of a good citizen, and using very violent methods to do so. So the National Convention and the people of the National Convention are like, well, maybe we should cut him down because he's doing too much, and they might be the next victims on his list. So they gathered enough votes to condemn him, and as you see here, Robespierre was guillotined on July 28th, 1794. So Robespierre, who was seen as this kind of leadership of the radical revolution of France during the French Revolution, suffered the same fate that the king suffered as well. And that's your number 10, King Louis the 16th of France. Alright? Alright. So, under this new constitution now, they're trying to do away with the Committee of Public Safety, right? So, under this new constitution, there was an executive committee of 5 that was called the Directory, and they were chosen by this council of elders. So within the national committee, right, and under this new constitution, there were a council of elders, and the council of elders chose 5 that was called the Directory, right? And now they have a new constitution. And the Directory, as you see here, lasted from 1795 to 1799, and they were mainly known for their corruption, very corrupt. They began to, in order to stay in power, they relied a lot on the military, but only one of them turned on the government itself. So they were using military force in order to stay in power, and also they were using a lot of the money, governmental money, to fund their, to do what they personally wanted to do, right? So because from that time period, from that 4-year time period, seeing the Directory in that corruption, that was a great opportunity for one to sneak up in the ranks and launch a coup d'etat, right? And that one person who was a part of their same military was General Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay? And he launched a coup d'etat, right? An overthrowing against the Directory. And now Napoleon Bonaparte is going to become the leader of France. Okay? But as you see here on the bottom, and I just wanted you to make those connections, he also repeals the abolition of slavery in the French colonies. Yep, that same one, that same general is going to repeal that, and again, that's a cause of the Haitian Revolution. Okay, so when we talk about the Haitian Revolution, remember all of these connections of what's happening. All right. And that is the end of our post. We'll talk more about Napoleon soon. See you.